Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that your life, your mind, and even your home could be under spiritual attack without you even realizing it? What if the struggles you face daily aren't just a result of bad luck or coincidence, but rather the consequence of doors you have unknowingly left wide open? The invisible battle is a reality that many fail to recognize, yet it influences every aspect of our lives. Whether we acknowledge it or not, there is a spiritual realm that operates beyond our physical senses. And within this realm, forces of light and darkness constantly contend for control. The idea of an unseen war may sound like fiction to some, but those who have encountered its effects know that it is more real than most people realize. The struggles, conflicts, and recurring issues in our lives are often not just coincidences or bad luck, but symptoms of a deeper, unseen battle happening around us. This battle does not manifest in obvious ways. It is not a war fought with weapons or armies that we can see, but rather an ongoing spiritual struggle that affects our minds, emotions, relationships, and even our physical well-being. Many people go through life completely unaware of the forces influencing them, mistaking spiritual oppression for ordinary misfortune. But just as the wind cannot be seen, yet its effects are felt, the forces of the unseen world work in similar ways, subtly but powerfully, shaping outcomes in our lives. One of the most dangerous aspects of this battle is that many unknowingly open doors that invite the influence of darkness. A person might experience cycles of depression, anxiety, addiction, or failure, never realizing that they have granted access to forces that thrive in such conditions. Darkness does not need to force its way into a life. It only needs an invitation. And often that invitation comes in the form of ignorance, disobedience, or agreement. These unseen forces are legalistic. They do not operate randomly, but seek permission to gain control. Permission is granted when people engage in behaviors, mindsets, or activities that align with darkness, sometimes without even realizing the consequences. Many dismiss the idea of spiritual influences, believing that everything can be explained by science, psychology, or human reasoning. While these fields offer valuable insight into human behavior, they often fail to address the root of deeper issues. Science can explain why a person struggles with anxiety, but it cannot explain why certain patterns of fear and torment persist despite logic. Psychology can analyze trauma, but it cannot fully account for the unseen forces that exploit that trauma to create cycles of destruction. There is a dimension to human struggles that goes beyond what the eye can see. And failing to recognize this truth leaves many vulnerable to unseen attacks. The most effective strategy of darkness is to remain hidden. As long as people do not believe in spiritual warfare, they will never engage in it. A person who does not know they are in a war will never defend themselves, leaving them exposed to constant defeat. This is why understanding the invisible battle is crucial. It is not just about knowledge, but about survival. Recognizing the reality of this war is the first step in gaining victory over the unseen forces that seek to control, oppress, and destroy. Those who become aware of this battle are empowered to fight back, to close doors they may have unknowingly opened, and to reclaim the authority that darkness has stolen. Demons do not operate without permission. They require access points to enter and influence a person's life. These access points, or doors, are often created through human actions, decisions, and agreements, whether intentional or unintentional. Just as a thief looks for an unlocked door or an open window to enter a house, spiritual forces of darkness seek legal entry into human lives. The problem is that most people do not realize when they have opened such a door. They may be struggling with recurring cycles of fear, depression, addiction, or destructive behavior, never understanding that these patterns are not merely psychological or circumstantial, but often have a spiritual root. These access points can come in many forms. One of the most common is through personal sin and rebellion. Every kingdom operates under laws, and the spiritual realm is no different. When a person knowingly or unknowingly violates divine principles, they create a breach in their spiritual protection. Just as ignoring natural laws such as gravity leads to physical consequences, ignoring spiritual laws results in engaging in certain behaviors, whether it be habitual dishonesty, immorality, substance abuse, or bitterness, creates a spiritual opening that invites darkness to take residence. What starts as a small compromise can eventually turn into a stronghold, making it more difficult to break free. Another major access point is exposure to occult practices. Many people engage in seemingly harmless activities without realizing their spiritual implications. Practices such as consulting psychics, reading horoscopes, participating in seances, using tarot cards, or engaging in witchcraft are not just entertainment. they serve as direct invitations for demonic forces to influence a person's life. These practices establish spiritual agreements, knowingly or unknowingly, that give darkness permission to operate. In many cases, the effects are not immediate, but over time, they create a web of spiritual bondage that manifests in confusion, oppression, and even physical ailments. Generational influences also serve as access points. Just as physical traits and behavioral tendencies are passed down through family lines, spiritual conditions can also be inherited. Patterns of addiction, abuse, mental illness, and financial struggle are often not just the result of environmental factors, but can be linked to generational curses that have given the enemy a legal right to operate within a family line. Without recognizing and intentionally breaking these patterns, they continue to manifest from one generation to the next. Trauma and emotional wounds are another way doors can be opened. When a person experiences deep pain, whether from abuse, betrayal, or severe loss, it creates an emotional vulnerability that dark forces seek to exploit. Bitterness, unforgiveness, and prolonged grief can become entry points if left unresolved. Darkness feeds on pain, and if healing does not take place, the enemy will use that brokenness as an access point to oppress and manipulate a person's life. Recognizing these access points is crucial because awareness is the first step toward freedom. If a door has been opened, it must be intentionally closed. Spiritual protection requires not only resisting temptation, but also breaking agreements with darkness, renouncing past influences, and aligning with divine principles that restore authority and peace. Ignorance is one of the most dangerous weapons that darkness uses against people. What a person does not know can hurt them, and in the spiritual realm, ignorance is not an excuse, it is a liability. Many people live their lives completely unaware of the spiritual battles taking place around them, believing that their struggles are merely physical, emotional, or circumstantial. They fail to recognize that unseen forces may be at work, influencing their thoughts, emotions, decisions, and even their environment. The enemy thrives in ignorance because, as long as people remain unaware of his schemes, they will never resist him. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is assuming that what they do not believe in cannot affect them. But the spiritual realm does not operate based on human belief. It operates on laws and principles. A person can choose not to believe in gravity, but if they jump off a building, they will still fall. Likewise, someone can deny the existence of spiritual darkness, but if they engage in behaviors or lifestyles that open doors, they will still experience its effects. This is why ignorance is so dangerous. Many people unknowingly invite demonic influences into their lives through habits, entertainment choices, relationships, or words they speak over themselves, never realizing the power they are releasing. Lack of knowledge about spiritual laws makes people vulnerable. If a person is unaware that certain behaviors create spiritual openings, they will continue engaging in them without caution. They may justify actions such as holding on to unforgiveness, engaging in immoral activities, or dabbling in occult practices without realizing that these choices have spiritual consequences. The enemy does not need a person's conscious permission to operate in their life. He only needs an open door. And ignorance ensures that many doors remain wide open. Another way ignorance becomes a trap is through cultural and generational influences. Many traditions, customs, and societal norms promote practices that seem harmless on the surface, but carry deep spiritual implications. Some families pass down rituals, belief systems, or superstitions that unknowingly align with darkness. Because people grow up surrounded by these practices, they rarely question their origins or effects. They assume that because something has always been done a certain way, it must be acceptable. However, without discernment, they may be perpetuating spiritual cycles that keep them and their families bound. Ignorance also prevents people from recognizing when they are under attack. A person may experience repeated failures, emotional instability, or an unexplainable heaviness, but attribute it to stress, bad luck, or external circumstances. They may try every natural solution, therapy, medication, self-help, but find that nothing fully resolves the issue. This is because some problems are spiritual in nature and require spiritual. Until a person gains knowledge and discernment, they will continue treating symptoms while the root issue remains untouched. The only way to overcome ignorance is through awareness and truth. Gaining knowledge about spiritual realities empowers people to make informed choices, close doors they may have unknowingly opened, and take authority over their lives. The moment a person begins to seek wisdom, darkness loses its advantage, and the process of freedom begins. The power of agreement is one of the most significant principles in the spiritual realm. Nothing happens without agreement. Every action, thought, or belief aligns a person with either light or darkness, and whatever they align with gains influence over their life. Many people unknowingly enter into agreements that give darkness permission to operate, and because they do not recognize these agreements, they suffer consequences that seem to have no explanation. And just understanding this principle is crucial because it determines the direction of a person's life, the forces that influence them, and ultimately their spiritual freedom or bondage. Agreement can take many forms. One of the most common ways people enter into agreement with darkness is through their words. Words are not just sounds. They carry power, authority, and spiritual weight. When a person repeatedly speaks negatively about themselves, saying things like, "I will never be successful," "nothing ever works out for me," or "I am always sick," they are unknowingly making declarations that can shape their reality. Words can function as contracts in the spiritual realm, giving permission for those statements to manifest. Darkness does not need to force its way into a person's life when that person has already spoken failure, fear, and destruction over themselves. Another way people align with darkness is through their thoughts and beliefs. The mind is a battleground, and whatever a person continually thinks about will eventually shape their actions and destiny. If someone consistently believes they are unworthy, unloved, or incapable, they are agreeing with lies that keep them bound. The enemy often whispers thoughts of fear, doubt, and insecurity, and when a person accepts those thoughts as truth, they unknowingly enter into an agreement with the very forces that seek to destroy them. Many people suffer in silence, trapped by their own thought patterns, unaware that their beliefs have become chains keeping them in bondage. Entertainment and relationships also serve as powerful sources of agreement. The things people watch, listen to, and engage with influence their spirit, whether they realize it or not. Music, movies, and social media content that promote immorality, violence, or fear can serve as subtle invitations for darkness. Likewise, relationships play a crucial role in shaping spiritual alignment. The people a person surrounds themselves with either encourage growth and light or pull them deeper into deception and destruction. If someone continually associates with those who engage in harmful behaviors, mock spiritual principles, or promote negativity, they are participating in agreements that can lead to oppression and defeat. Even passive participation in certain practices can create spiritual agreements. Many people engage in cultural or religious rituals without understanding their origins or consequences. Whether it be through superstitions, occult practices, or seemingly harmless traditions, agreements are formed that can have lasting effects. Some struggles people face are rooted in agreements made generations before them, passed down through family lines without question. The only way to break these agreements is through conscious rejection and replacement with truth. A person must recognize where they have aligned themselves with darkness, renounce those agreements, and choose to align with principles that bring life and freedom. The moment a person decides to break free from destructive agreements, they take back control, and darkness loses its legal right to operate in their life. Freedom through awareness is one of the most powerful keys to breaking spiritual bondage and living a life of peace, purpose, and victory. Many people remain trapped in cycles of fear, failure, and oppression simply because they do not realize the root cause of their struggles. Awareness is the first step to breaking free because a person cannot fight an enemy they do not recognize. Once someone understands the spiritual realities affecting their life, they gain the ability to make conscious decisions that align with truth and close the doors that were previously open to darkness. One of the biggest reasons people remain in bondage is because they have been conditioned to believe that their problems are purely physical or emotional. They seek natural solutions for what is often a spiritual issue. If a person is dealing with fear, anxiety, or depression, they may turn to medication or therapy, which can help to some extent, but if there is a deeper spiritual root, those solutions will never bring complete freedom. Until a person becomes aware that some struggles are spiritual in nature, they will continue to fight battles using the wrong weapons. The moment they realize the true source of their oppression, they can begin taking the right steps to break free. Awareness is not just about recognizing problems. It is about understanding the solutions. Many people live in fear of spiritual darkness because they do not know the authority they have to resist it. They allow circumstances, emotions, and negative influences to control them because they have never been taught that they have the power to change their situation. Knowledge is the key to empowerment. The more a person understands spiritual laws, the less power darkness has over them. A person who is aware of their authority will not be easily manipulated, deceived, or controlled by fear. Another crucial aspect of awareness is discernment. Not everything that appears harmless is truly harmless. Many people engage in activities, relationships, and entertainment choices that seem normal but are actually opening doors to oppression. They unknowingly allow negative influences into their lives because they lack the discernment to see beyond the surface. Awareness sharpens a person's ability to recognize what is beneficial and what is destructive. It enables them to make wise decisions that protect their spiritual, emotional, and mental well-being. The process of freedom begins the moment a person gains awareness and decides to take action. Once they recognize the doors they have opened, they can begin to close them. Once they see the lies they have believed, they can replace them with truth. Once they understand the authority they have, they can resist the forces that once controlled them. Awareness is not just about knowing what is wrong. It is about stepping into the light of truth and making decisions that lead to lasting freedom. A person who is aware, equipped, and intentional about their spiritual life will not be easily ensnared by the traps of darkness. Instead, they will walk in clarity, confidence, and power, fully in control of their destiny. Closing the doors to darkness is not just about avoiding harmful influences. It is an intentional process of breaking free from past agreements, rejecting false beliefs, and establishing a new foundation built on truth and authority. Many people unknowingly open doors that invite spiritual oppression into their lives, but just as these doors can be opened, they can also be closed. The key is awareness, action, and consistency. It is not enough to recognize the problem. One must actively remove access points, replace negative influences with positive ones, and guard against future attacks. True freedom comes when a person not only removes darkness, but also fills their life with light. The first step in closing doors is recognizing where they have been opened. Many people suffer from recurring struggles such as fear, anxiety, addiction, or toxic relationships without realizing that these issues are often tied to spiritual access points. They may have unknowingly given permission for these struggles to take root through past decisions, generational influences, or even spoken words. Taking an honest inventory of one's life, examining past experiences, habitual thoughts, and current struggles can reveal patterns that indicate an open door. Awareness of these patterns is the first step to breaking them. Once a door has been identified, the next step is renouncing and rejecting any agreements made with darkness. This is an intentional act of breaking spiritual ties that have been formed through words, actions, or beliefs. Many people live under oppression because they have never revoked permission that was granted, either by themselves or through generational influences. Renouncing these agreements means rejecting past alignments with fear, sin, and deception. It is a conscious decision to take back authority over one's life and remove any legal access that darkness has claimed. After rejecting darkness, it is essential to replace it with truth. Nature does not tolerate a vacuum. If something is removed, it must be replaced with something stronger. If a person breaks free from negative thought patterns, they must fill their mind with truth and positive affirmations. If they cut off toxic relationships, they must surround themselves with people who uplift and strengthen them. If they remove destructive habits, they must adopt new ones that promote spiritual, emotional, and mental well-being. Closing doors is not just about elimination, it is about transformation. A person who simply removes darkness but does not replace it with light will eventually find themselves struggling again. Maintaining freedom requires vigilance. Just as a house must be protected against intruders, a person must guard their life against influences that seek to re-enter. This means being mindful of what they allow into their minds, hearts, and daily routines. It means staying aware of the enemy's strategies and refusing to fall into old patterns. The more intentional a person is about maintaining their spiritual health, the less power darkness will have over them. Closing doors is not a one-time event, but a lifestyle of awareness, discipline, and alignment with truth. When a person actively guards their life, they remain free, strong, and in control of their destiny. The battle between light and darkness is real, and whether we acknowledge it or not, it influences every aspect of our lives. Many people unknowingly open doors that invite oppression, deception, and destruction, allowing unseen forces to gain control over their thoughts, emotions, and circumstances. These doors can be opened through ignorance, rebellion, false agreements, generational influences, and even the words we speak over ourselves. What we align with determines the power that operates in our lives, whether for good or for harm. But just as these doors can be opened, they can also be closed. Awareness is the first step to freedom. Once we recognize where we have allowed darkness access, we have the power to shut those doors permanently. This requires intentional action, renouncing harmful agreements, rejecting false beliefs, and replacing destructive influences with truth and wisdom. It is not enough to simply remove darkness. We must actively fill our lives with light, align with principles that lead to peace and victory, and guard against anything that seeks to steal our authority. True freedom is not accidental. It is a choice. It requires vigilance, consistency, and a commitment to living with awareness and purpose. Those who recognize the unseen battle and take responsibility for their spiritual well-being will walk in clarity, strength, and power. They will no longer be victims of unseen forces, but will stand in authority, breaking free from cycles of oppression and reclaiming control over their lives. The question is not whether spiritual doors exist. The question is whether we are opening them unknowingly or closing them intentionally. The choice is ours. Darkness only has power where it is given access. And when we choose to close every door that invites oppression, we step into a life of victory, peace, and true freedom.